all praises, all praises to the heavenly, holy, almighty creator of infinity, eternity, the universe, and all there is. Hello, family. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit. We are back together again in this wonderful consensual assembly of care, concern, and coordinated compassion for the brothers and sisters of the world, the pending Israelites, as well as the scattered 12 tribes, wherever they may sojourn. And family, once again, we are at the threshold of transition to receive the holy transmission of this information for the holy hidden nations, education, and edification. All praises. And so, family, we are back together again. We are here to disseminate and discern, to mentally marinate and elaborate on some more of the history of the so-called American country or corporation, as it may be, or as it is. And so we will be looking at some information brought out by a brother historian, as we will unveil in this particular episode. So we just wanted to get ourselves in the mind to be free and to create these visualizations as we are delving back into the past, so that we can get a sense of the existence of our ancestors, our foremothers and forefathers, the children of Israel, as they were dealing with the prophetic captivity and bondage in a new land. And so we shall begin, but we will unveil to you, or we will express the continuing standards of the Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit channel with the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 6, as well as the second heavenly eternal standard in the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 8. So, family, now we will be going over some sensitive information. So if you have little ones, viewer and listener discretion is advised. And there's some information that, as you visualize, may be a little advanced for some of our younger minds. So just take care and beware. And so as we begin, tonight's title of the article is Sexual Abuse of Slaves by Students at Founding Fathers University, Revealed by Historians. And we begin. The two young white University of Virginia students had a secret. It was September 1826, and the men, both scions of wealthy Southern slaveholding families, were suffering from the same sexually transmitted disease. Conferring, they identified a possible culprit, an enslaved black woman whom both had raped. They also thought of a solution. Joined by several classmates, Turner Dixon and George Hoffman attacked the woman, accused her of giving them a venereal disease, stripped her naked, and beat her bloody, as University of Virginia professor Alan Taylor recounts in his new book, Thomas Jefferson's Education. Her name is lost, but her age is known. She was 16 when the woman's owner, a local tavern keeper, complained to faculty members at the university. Professors verbally reprimanded the two ringleaders and wrote letters to their parents. Now, isn't that something, family? For the scope of punishment which these young gentlemen experienced. It was a letter written to their parents, I guess, telling them what they did. You didn't hear of an expulsion. You didn't hear of a suspension. You didn't hear of any criminal charges. Now keep in mind, family, this is 1826, so we have to keep the historical consequence, circumstance, and context in context. This was a time where institutionalized enslavement of quote unquote black people was sanctioned. Because Dixon and Hoffman appeared sorry and voluntarily paid the tavern keeper $10, professors declared the punishment sufficient, according to Mr. Taylor. Records show a student who mishandled a library book earned harsher discipline than those of the culprits of this brutalization. Wow, this is shocking today. The incident was unremarkable for its time and place. Throughout the first half of the 19th century, male students studying at Southern universities regularly mistreated, beat, and raped enslaved men, women, and children who catered to their everyday needs. The brutal behavior was ignored or accepted by professors, administrators, and local authorities. These men are 16 or 17 years old. They've been raised on plantations and have been trained from youth that it is their job to command people and abuse them if there is any resistance to their command. For a student to lash out and hit an enslaved person, that was routine in this world. Little, if any, previous scholarship has explored the horrific abuse endured by slave people working at Southern colleges in the lead up to the U.S. Civil War. All right, family, so we see at these elite universities, the system of bondage was accepted, maintained, and cultivated. This is the University of Virginia, set up by Thomas Jefferson himself, one of the founding fathers, the signatories of the Declaration of Independence, and a slave owner himself. It's now coming to light, courtesy of two books, Educated in Tyranny and Slavery at Thomas Jefferson University. Both books draw on years of painstaking scrutiny of archival records, which the University of Virginia made available as part of its ongoing attempt to grapple with its slaveholding past. Last year, the university produced a 96-page report that concluded slavery was in every way imaginable central to the project of designing, funding, building, and maintaining the school. It also vowed to erect a monument honoring the enslaved laborers who built its campus. The university's efforts come as dozens of universities across the country undertake similar examinations, and as America marks the 400th anniversary of the arrival of the first enslaved Africans in Jamestown. The dark milestone has spurred a reckoning with the awful reality of slavery and the myriad ways it shaped the nation. And so, family, as we are in this particular segment of review of our captivity, and as we are building that tide and tidal wave within the reparations revolution under the banner of the American descendants of the slaves, we can see how intricate and how deep and well woven the bondage of our foreparents sustained the economy, the institutions of elite higher learning, the government itself through cultivation, architecture, building, construction, and basic human servitude. And so this is continuing exhibits of evidence for that reparations revolution, that case for righteous repair and retribution. All right. Two authors of the above listed books said they hoped to surface the invisible history and day-to-day agony of the enslaved people who for decades serviced America's prestigious institutions of higher education. Miss McInnes, one of the authors, said the University of Virginia, established at the start of the 19th century, or was established at the start of the 19th century by the slave-owning founding father who penned the Declaration of Independence, afforded a perfect case study. The central paradox at the heart of this university is also the central paradox of the nation, the unresolved paradox of American liberty. And so, family, that paradox is within the basic framework and construction of the American Constitution, where it is outlined where all men are created equal, right next to the crafting of that document, which would be the cornerstone of the building of the new nation. Right outside, you had a whole nation of people in wicked captivity, bondage, servitude, disenfranchisement, and utter destruction. So how do you resolve the paradox between liberty and destruction? How is it that the nation that defined the natural rights of humankind did so within a system that denied those same rights to millions of people? What does it mean to have a university founded by the man who said all men are created equal, and to have that same university built and maintained through the stolen liberty of others? Thomas Jefferson established the University of Virginia in 1819 with a clear mission: to create more Thomas Jeffersons. Mr. Jefferson, who by then had served as both president and vice president, envisioned the university as a breeding ground for the next generation of the country's political elite, beneficiaries of his educational program molded in his image. Still, he wanted students to differentiate themselves in at least one important way. He wanted them to end slavery in America. So I guess at the time, Mr. Jefferson was developing an increasing conscience as to the paradox facing America, the great stain, the great evil, and he had set forth for the preceding generations of his kind to eliminate that wickedness. In his late 70s at the time, the former president said he was too old to take any action himself, a claim he first advanced in his 40s. Instead, Mr. Jefferson insisted the up-and-coming generation should fix the problem by emancipating the enslaved and deporting them to Africa. He wanted to whiten Virginia. He believed the University of Virginia would help achieve that. Instead, early graduates became leading voices in the pro-slavery movement. Soldiers in the Confederate Army and political leaders in the Confederate States of America. Wow, so the program or the wish to reconcile his own conscience through the preceding generations actually had the opposing effect, family. The vast majority of the student body, numbering between 100 and 150 each year, hailed from wealthy Southern slaveholding families. So in essence, it would have been a conflict of interest for them to serve the quote-unquote dream of emancipation by Jefferson. Plantation-owning parents clamored to send their sons to the University of Virginia, lauded as a prestigious alternative to the northern schools they feared as dangerous hotbeds of anti-slavery sentiment. Ultra-rich Southerners. Also, some of the only Americans able to afford tuition at the university, then the most expensive college in the country. The design of its grounds and buildings featuring incredible segregation of student, faculty, white spaces, and enslaved African American workspace, ultimately reinforced vile theories of white supremacy employed to justify slavery. Jefferson physically designed a campus that internalized everything he had learned living on plantations. It is architecturally set up to be a landscape of slavery. The University of Virginia had one real rule about enslaved people. Students were not allowed to bring any to campus. In part, professors feared the student body would compete to see who could arrive with the most enslaved servants, straining the school's resources. Besides, the university already had a significant labor force, usually between 100 and 200 enslaved servants, about half of them women. Wow, family, so the university itself had its own live human property designated and assigned for the care and welfare of the university grounds, administrators, faculty, and students. Wow, the actual university owned the blood and bodies of our ancestors. The enslaved helped build almost every inch of the university, from its deep brick cellars to its soaring white columns. Once students arrived, the university's enslaved cooked their meals. The enslaved cooked their meals, cleaned their rooms, washed their clothes, tended fires in dormitories, planted and cared for the school's gardens, and maintained classrooms and outhouses. Enslaved people also catered to students' daily whims. Every afternoon, an enslaved servant called on his assigned student. The enslaved person then took orders for errands on the grounds or in town. They also had to obey the sometimes conflicting dictates of every student or professor they passed on campus. This meant having not one master, but hundreds, making navigating daily life fraught with peril. Through it all, the enslaved faced unchecked abuse from the privileged pupils they served. Sometimes bored students played cruel pranks, tricks such as setting buckets of cold water atop a door to douse a servant entering to clean. Other times, students nearly beat the enslaved to death, including one who looked uppity while serving food, and another who was slightly too slow to clear away feces left behind by a student's dog. School records reveal students punching, kicking, and mutilating enslaved people with canes. Some, frustrated with the pace of service in campus dining halls, threw knives at their enslaved waiters. Once a student, convinced that an enslaved girl had spoken to him with insolence, he beat and kicked the 10-year-old until she passed out and a physician had to be called. Oh man, family, the brutality and dastardly behavior committed against the four parents. A 10-year-old baby brutalized because of whatever interpretation or representation this privileged student felt. He unleashed a wrath of wickedness against her. At the University of Virginia, as at every Southern university in America during this era, bullying the enslaved formed part of daily existence. It was also performance art, a way for rich young men to prove their mettle to their peers. The episodes we do know of, other students are watching and applauding. This was a whole generation of men who just behaved monstrously. Enslaved women were at special risk. Rapes were routine, whether conducted in nearby houses of prostitution, staffed by enslaved women, or in dark alleyways and shady corners of campus. Students arrived in Charlottesville steeped in a plantation culture of sexual tyranny, felt the enslaved women working at the university were just one of the Virginian luxuries they had a right to. It can be difficult to track sexual assaults in the archives because squeamish faculty often used euphemisms. Still, the few cases available are haunting, like the time 3 students seized a small Negro girl about 12 years old, per university records, dragged her to an out-of-the-way cemetery and raped her. Most of the time, professors did nothing or referred the matter to local authorities who also did nothing. Occasionally, faculty members might deliver verbal admonishments, Meanwhile, professors commonly dismiss students for failing to wear the prescribed school uniform. So family, you would get kicked out of school for not wearing your uniform quicker than you would for raping a 12-year-old. University of Virginia. No calls for discipline came from the school's founder either. It's probable that Jefferson knew about the students' brutalization of the enslaved. As a slave owner himself, Jefferson knew that slavery was everywhere, including at his cherished college, led to violence against the enslaved. But there's nothing in the record from him. Frankly, Jefferson does not want to see or think about it, See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Many Americans will find or feel the revelations about these student behaviors horrifying. But books outlining this behavior are necessary at this political and cultural moment in America. There's a broad understanding that slavery is bad. People got whipped, but there's also an urge to compartmentalize it. That was bad, but it's over with. And we should focus on the good stuff like the University of Virginia's cutting-edge education in science. There is no effort to ruin people's day, but there is going to be the effort to continually outline the true history and construction of this university and American society as a whole. All right, family, so as we take in that information, as we visualize our foremothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, as they existed in this state of Virginia, as they existed amongst the slave masters, the enslavers, the captors, as captives within this society, on the grounds of this prestigious learning institution, they were submitted to the most horrifying and satanic behaviors, punishments, and overall sadist entertainment. And so, family, let us expand our mental capacities as we dwell within this history, as we bring this back to a conscious, active remembrance. We still carry the blood of these people as we continue to persevere and endure, as well as the enemy. Their blood still walks around as we coexist in this society, and they still benefit, and they still prosper, and they still profit off of the destroyed souls and the anguish of those elders. And so this is a continuing provocation to our souls as we reach forth for that righteous retribution, repair, and reparations within this revolution. And we shall continue, and we shall stand strong. We shall bring forth the righteous fight to the wicked existence within this continent of confusion and captivity. So family, that was a review of episodes within the founding, within the existence, within the activities of the University of Virginia, founded by Thomas Jefferson, an American president. So, as these morsels, as these texts, as these periodicals become exposed with this information to bring us back to our true identities, heritage, custom, and wisdom, we shall reconvene in peace and love and harmony. And until we are together again, I love you. I love you. I love you. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit.